and have it going. Gentlemen, Coach Willis, former WNBA player, champion, gold medalist. I mean, her resume is kind of long, and we only have an hour. But she is she's someone that I connected with a couple years ago now on LinkedIn, and we got to talk for about 20 minutes when we first connected. And I've kind of been watching everything that she's doing and kind of been admiring from afar. So when Rising Coaches gave me the opportunity to have my own content being put out, she's definitely someone that I had in the back of my mind to have on. So without further ado, the one and only Coach Lisa Willis. Welcome to the Rising Coaches.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, Coach, I know about you because I've done a lot of research, but I leave it up to you to toot your own horn because you've had a great resume so far that I think that I find very impressive, and guys can definitely learn from your journey.
Yeah. Well, will start with college. I went to my dream school, UCLA. While I was there, I had the opportunity to try out for the USA team. So I made the team, got a gold medal. And then shortly after that, I was drafted first round, number 5 pick to the LA Sparks. Played for about 2 seasons in LA and 2 seasons in New York, while also playing overseas in Russia, Greece, Latvia, and Turkey. Um, my career came to an end in 2010 when I suffered an ACL, MCL, and LCL, those tears in my right knee. So after that, I just kind of had to figure out which way I wanted to go in. And I started working on my player development business full time. I started it when I was in college, but once I retired, I took it on full time. And it was called Need a Jumper because I was thinking that I was going to be helping kids with their jump shots. But the results or the feedback that I was getting from parents was, my kid is getting better, but, he or she is becoming a better student, more outgoing, and just becoming the kid that they always wanted them to be. And after hearing that for so long, or so many times, I had to kind of take a step back and think like, okay, what am I doing uh, to get this kind of feedback? And so I realized that the approach that I was taking to developing kids on the court was a holistic approach that really dealt with, the relationships that I was trying to build with them and their family. And then I started being more intentional about that. And just from that feedback, I started to build out different curricula and programs to speak to schools, universities, corporations, and stuff like that, because I understood what it took to develop, the type of athlete or the type of employee that these big companies want. In the midst of that, I coached a little bit, and I just finished writing my first book. So that is the 90-second version of Lisa Willis.
What's the name of the book?
When the Buzzer Sounds. Yeah.
When does that come out? Because
Fall. It's coming out fall.
There you go. So, Coach, one thing I want to address, because I find that very interesting about your journey. We always hear sometimes you have to take a leap of faith. You have to take a cut. I remember before the Knicks situation came out, you were coaching high school.
Mm-hmm.
What was the reasoning behind you going to the high school level?
God pushed me there. I was trying my hardest not to go. Like, I told the athletic director no 3 times, and he acted like he didn't hear me. He was so persistent, and so I finally prayed about it, and God was like, go, and so outside of the spiritual realm, once I kind of got the go ahead from God, uh, it was like, okay, well, now all the things that I've been, pushing with other universities and some of my private clients. Like now, I can do that with a group of girls um, throughout the whole season and watch how they grow and really see how my stuff works. And so that was one of the pros. I mean, I knew the basketball part, I would be able to take care of that. But I mean, coaching is more than the X's and O's. So it's like, okay, this is what I'm talking about for personal development and to get the most out of these players. And so let's see how it works with a bunch of girls.
And from there, going into the G League, how did that carry over to you? Some of the stuff that you were implementing with your program, did you bring some of those to the next level with you? And what was what were the similarities and the differences that you found?
Yeah, I brought it all with me. I mean, everything that I've experienced, literally from, being 8 years old all the way up until I started coaching with the Knicks, I brought all of that with me because that shaped my viewpoints, that shaped, how I engage with players. Um, and so once I got there, it was great. Like I was thinking that maybe I would need to brush up on some basketball, whatever. I don't know. But that was the last thing that I had to worry about. My basketball IQ, just my knowledge of the game, it was it was good. It transferred to every level. The part that was a little bit more difficult was how to navigate that type of organization. You know, not the Knicks organization, but just a professional organization. Um, that was different. So it's like, okay, I was used to being the head coach. How do I assert myself, but still respect that the head coach is the head coach? How do I help him, further his message? And so that was more so of where I was trying to adjust. But I mean, the way that I handled my high school girls were the same way that I handled my professional men. They needed the same thing, and which is just to feel value and to know that, the person who is leading them actually cares about them. Now, some of the differences, I mean, outside of the obvious, girls versus men, um, would be just the type of play. Like with these guys, they could jump out the gym. Like their athletic abilities were just amazing, And so with them, I had to kind of tell them, okay, yes, you're athletic, that's great, but if you implement this one piece of fundamental, it'll take your game to a new level. With the girls, it was like, okay, you're so robotic trying to do everything the right way. Just get loose, just have fun. Like I would encourage my girls to go out there and do something like crazy, like have a good time, have fun. This is high school. And so the coaching was, a little bit different in that sense. But I mean, for the most part, leadership is leadership, whether you're coaching boys, whether you're coaching girls or men or leading an organization or something like that. It's all leadership.
One thing and I'm asking this for my personal reasons. Um, what was that transition like for you? Yes, you have all the accolades as a player, but you are still a woman coming in to coach men. What was that transition for you, and what are some of the things that you had to kind of fight to prove yourself, if you will, to them?
I had nothing to prove to my players. My players knew my resume. They're like, yo, I'm trying to do what she did. Oh, she could shoot. Can you help me? Like with the guys, it was so easy. It was super duper easy. The respect came just like that. Again, it was me trying to fit in with the coaches because at the NBA, at the G League level, everybody got there a different way. Everybody took their own journeys to get to this one coaching staff. And some people may feel like their journey is the right way. Some people may look at your journey and say this. Like there are a lot of ways to get to this coaching staff. And so depending on the journey that you took, the route that you took, it's like, okay, how do I make it so that they know my history, my past, my journey, it landed me here for a reason. I wasn't given anything. This isn't politics that I'm here. Like, I'm here because I know what I'm doing, And so, kind of trying to balance that, but then having to realize like you're not in competition with them. So just do what you're doing, but still feel valued. Like those were the nuances that I had to try to figure out. But on the court stuff, piece of cake.
Gentlemen, I put that in the chat, so feel free to jump in and ask questions. She's not gonna bite, okay? So
I do not.
Coach, I just did a little reading on your background. I'm actually kind of interested in hearing a little bit about your Latvian league experience and how that came to fruition. Like, how do you go to join that league, and what was the experience like going international for you? And sorry, Menelik Fernandez from Toronto, Canada. Pleasure to meet you.
Likewise, likewise. It was interesting. I was born and raised in Southern California. At the time, let's see, I was 22 years old. I went to UCLA, so that's right at home. I played for the LA Sparks, so that's right at home. And then they're like, "You're going overseas. Not only are you going overseas, but you're going to Russia." And so it's like I've been here for 22 years, and now you're sending me to Russia. And so I went to Russia, and that was quite the experience. But that was like my rookie year. I felt like I started at the bottom, even though that was a top league. Socially, I feel like I started at the bottom, so that anywhere that I went after that, it was great. So once I left Russia, I literally went to the best place ever, Greece. And so I went to Greece, and I actually had to ask my agent to remove me because I was having way too much fun. Like I was in Athens, there were so many Americans there. Like I went up, like I don't drink now. In college, I didn't drink, I didn't party, but in Greece, like I was just a different person. So I asked my agent to get me out of Greece. So he sent me to Turkey for 2 years. After Turkey, then I went to Latvia. And so Latvia was the more mature me, and I was looking for different things in Latvia culturally, and they just really didn't have it. Um, everybody everybody spoke English. Latvia broke off from Russia um, 20 years prior, so they were still trying to figure out who they were culturally. And that's important because when you're going to all these different countries to play, you're living there for 6 to 9 months. And so you want to really, you know, learn what you don't want to be a tourist. You want to live like them. And so that was kind of difficult in that sense, but it also made it easier because they had American movies, American restaurants, and stuff like that. Basketball wise, um, it was it wasn't one of the best deals that I had, but it was a job, and I went out there, and for the majority of the season, I was the only WNBA player, and we're playing in the Euro League, the top league in all of Europe, and these other teams have like three WNBA players and a WNBA coach against me, and so that was difficult. But it was the overseas experience is cool because the support that you get from the community, they all come out to watch you play, and they love on you super hard. They cheer for you super hard. And when we won the Latvian championship, um, it was just the best feeling ever. Like that was the first championship that I had ever won as a professional, and just to have everybody rally behind us, that was a great feeling. But how did I get there? I had a WNBA agent and I had a European agent, and so my European agent, he does his European thing, talking to his European people, and then next thing you know, he's like, "Hey, do you want to go
Sorry, can I just follow that up real quick, Mendel?
Go ahead, go ahead.
Do you think that we are getting closer to the point of view changing that playing professional basketball is sustainable for females in sports? So I spent 1 year coaching ladies at the university level, and I did several years of youth, and I found that one of the biggest challenges that was almost prohibitive was that, like, long term, a lot of female athletes don't think that staying with sport is sustainable, and I think that it is, and I think the paths are getting better to getting there. But I mean, like, you're somebody who's lived that experience. Do you think that it's becoming more realistic in young ladies' minds? And if not, what can we do to help change that?
I think that it is sustainable, but I think that every individual has to determine what they want. And so for me, I played 4 years in the W and then I was done due to an injury. But before that injury came, I would say 3 or 4 months before I had that injury, I told my agent that I didn't want to play anymore. And so it's like, then I decided, okay, let me go back overseas one more time. And then I injured myself, yada, yada, yada. But the reality is that everybody's goals are different. So what's sustainable for me may not be sustainable for somebody else, And so I think that's a case by case situation. One thing that is different for women is that, women, okay, men and women want to have families, but if a woman decides that she wants to have a family, the implications are far greater, And so if that's something that you're looking to do early on, then that's a whole different game plan that you have to figure out. Um, we are susceptible to serious injuries, And so there's a lot of different things that come with playing sports, especially at the professional level, being away from home, um, being the primary caregiver and being away from home. Is that sustainable for you? So I think it's a player by player situation, and it's something to really look at because if you're adamant about having a great professional career, there are a ton of things that you need to do. And to be able to even get to the WNBA level, that means that you're serious about taking care of the basketball thing. So you'll just need to take that same seriousness off the court to your personal life and navigate that.
Thanks, Coach.
Sure thing.
I'll take that a step further, Coach Lisa. Do you think that is the same case for women trying to be in the coaching profession? Younger female coaches trying to make it.
I think I think it might be easier if you know you want to be a coach. I think it's easier for you to do that, because especially if you know while you're still playing that you would like to be a coach, because now it's about building relationships. A lot of people who are getting hired, they know somebody, and I'm sure they're qualified too, but there are a lot of qualified people, we'll say, that are not coaching at their respective levels because they might not know the right people. So coming straight out of college, you can be a graduate assistant. You can start building relationships within, you know, um, with your head coach. Because I know a lot of people who they go on and they become an assistant coach for their head coach. Like I think that you can start coaching high school or whatever. But now it's more so about it's no longer about can you play the sport. With the W, you have to physically be able to play the sport. You know, as a coach, you have to know the sport. You have to have or you should know the sport. You should have a specific IQ associated with it. And so I just think that it's easier than playing in the W. But again, you have to be intentional about those steps that you're taking to network and to put yourself out there as a leader.
What are some things that you've learned overseas that have helped you grow that you carried over into coaching now?
Um, the biggest thing is that, especially being an implant, being a foreigner, The biggest thing I learned was that basketball is our common denominator. That's the language we speak. That's the passion we share. Like that's what's waking us up in the morning. Like it's basketball. So if if basketball is what's holding us, is what's holding these 12 plus three coaches all together as a tight knit family, then as a coach, we need to make sure that the basketball part is good. You know, winning or losing, you need to make sure that the basketball part is good. And so, how are you allowing them to play basketball? You know, uh, and that stems from, you could take a player like Dennis Rodman. Dennis Rodman didn't have the best role on the team, but he had like didn't he wasn't really touching the ball, he wasn't scoring, but he had this specific role. And he was able to do his role at a ridiculous level because the basketball part was good. Not the contracts, not the endorsements, the basketball part was good. And so I would just say as a leader, you want to make sure that not everybody's going to be the star, but whatever role that they have, make them feel good about that. Make them feel like you're fair. Make sure that as the leader of this group, you're making sure and you're keeping the main thing, which is the basketball.
For coaches or players that may be interested in going to play overseas or coach overseas, what are some advice that you would give them?
That's difficult. That's really difficult. I was blessed because I was sought after. If you're a player, like there's two different stories. Like I played in Greece, where my experience playing in Greece was very different from the next player's experience playing in Greece. And that's just the reality. We're not created equal. We're not created with the same opportunities. We're not created with the same caliber of agent. And even if we do have the same agent, we're not going to be on the same we're not going to be at the same place on the totem pole. And I experienced that. That light was shown in my face when I was in Greece. It's hard. It's hard to find an agent. It's hard to find a connected agent that will work with a player that's not highly sought after. Because the agent is only going to get paid if he gets you a job. But if he doesn't think he can get you a job, then he's not going to work with you because he doesn't know if he could get paid. What they want to know about is your stats. If you went to, let's say, a D2 school, did you kill it? Like it's really a numbers game. And then if you're a small player, that's difficult to get you placed because Europe has a buttload of small players. So if you're a small player, you have to be out of this world. So it's really really hard to get overseas, and I don't really know what advice to offer. Even when I have people coming to me like, "Hey, do you have any players?" They're always asking me, "Do you have any WNBA players? That can do this, this, and this." So that's difficult, and I wish I had more that I can offer, but that wasn't the experience that I lived.
I'll ask you a question. Were you gonna ask a question, Mendo?
Go ahead, John. This is
Okay.
about you guys more so than about me. I know Coach Willis already.
So obviously, being in the G League, you kind of hear guys that the players they say like, "Oh, if I don't get drafted, I'll just go to the G League." And, the talent level, was it what you expected? Because I mean, the G League is really talented now, as opposed to like when it first started. They weren't. The NBA was not funding it a lot, but now that they've invested in it, and you feel like the talent level is definitely matched to the hype of the G League.
Yeah, I really think that the difference between a G League player and an NBA player might be IQ, might be opportunity, um, or exposure. But these guys in the G League, like they can do all the things that these NBA guys can do, And so, I yes, the talent is great. You'll even see when G League players get called over to the NBA, it's seamless. They're a little timid because obviously this is what they've been dreaming of their whole life, and it's new and blah blah blah. But it's they fit right in. So then it just becomes about decision making and whatnot. But the G League has definitely been funded a lot better. Um, the salaries, although they're not the best, um, it's way more than what it was when it was the D League. And it's a really good opportunity for players who are aspiring to play in the NBA to be seen by that franchise, and other franchises like at the showcase. Instead of going overseas and then waiting till a later date to hopefully be checked out. Um, you're right there. You're learning the NBA system. You're learning the NBA culture, and it's a good opportunity. I wouldn't say stay in the G League for more than 3 years. Um, if at that point, you might as well go overseas and make some money. But fresh out of college, go for it. It's a great opportunity.
I guess I'll ask another question. What were kind of some of the biggest hurdles you had to overcome overseas? So like a lot of guys. So I have a player who's trying to go overseas, and he's good, but when he got offered a bunch of different contracts to play overseas, and from what I found out, it turns out it wasn't the money. The money is what was the issue, but I think a lot of guys don't understand that you necessarily won't make a ton of money overseas depending on where you're playing, and you have to eventually start low and make it to the higher levels. So, what were kind of some of the biggest things you didn't know that you now look back on that you kind of could have necessarily like you learned about?
Um, I think that so okay. Once you're already overseas, so now you're not worried about your contract or whatnot. Once you're actually overseas now, um, it's a job, and you're playing for your next contract. Like your agent is the one who has to be able to go out and shop you. And so if you're a shooting guard and you're averaging 8 points and one steal and 3 rebounds, they feel like a native can do that. And so you have to you have to be so much better than the players over there if you want to keep making money. You know, you are going to start out a little bit low because they don't know what you can do. Okay, yes, you had a great career in college, but just like going from high school to college, they're hoping that your skill set transitions or translates to that team, that conference, that style of play. Same thing with playing professionally, going from college to professional. They're hoping that skill set can transition properly. Different countries play different styles of basketball, so you need to understand if this country is going to be more physical. Turkey is a more physical country. Um, Russia is a more physical country. Greece, they foul a lot, but they're not really as physical as just getting bumped around. You need to know that. Like a player, Iverson, when he went to play in Turkey, he struggled because his mean crossover, they can hold you now, and so you have to understand even more than the people over there who's trying to bring you in. You have to understand how your game will translate over there, and work so that you're always an asset and you're far better than the players over there. Because if you win, they'll give it to you. Yes, we won because of you. But if you lose, even if it's not your fault, it's your fault. So you have to be ready to put the team on your shoulder.
I just want to point out that Coach Willis's crossover is so nasty. She's breaking furniture's ankles in her play.
Right? Right. Like, geez.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing you just brought up, Coach. If you win, they give you the love. if you lose, whether it's on you or not, you're gonna take the hit. Does that in some way help or break some of the guys that go overseas in hopes to maybe come back around to the NBA, in your opinion?
I think that helps because that's you being the leader. Like as a coach, you know, if the team wins, it's on you. You put it on the players because they're the ones that went out. But at the end of the day, you're the ones that prepared them to go out. And if you're losing, and it's like these kids, these guys, these girls, they're not doing anything that I tell them to do. That also is your fault. Like if they're not following your lead, that's reflecting you as a leader. You know, and so I think that that type of situation is just preparing you for life and preparing you for leadership. So it's nice to have that additional pressure be put on you because it feels so much better when you win. It's like, yeah, I did do this for my team. I did do this for the city. You know, so I don't think it breaks players at all.
Coach, I agree so much with what you just said in that, like, are you really a good leader if nobody follows? Like, you could have all of the correct leadership skills or slogans, etc. But if everybody's like, man, forget that guy, I don't want to listen to him, or forget that lady, I don't want to listen to her. Like, you're not really a good leader if you can't put your players in a position for them to succeed and they see that what you're giving them is actually good for them. If there's no buy-in, you're not a leader.
Exactly. And that's what that's the biggest thing about being a coach or a leader is the relationships that you build. You can't build a relationship with the team. You have to build a relationship with the individual players because what's good for one, what works for one, that's not necessarily going to be good for the other. And a cancerous player can run through the program so quickly and you just lost everybody. And so if you if you just have to be intentional about what everybody wants, and you can't really be. That doesn't mean you have to give it to them, but you have to understand what they want, understand how you can help them, and make them and care about them. I don't want to say make them feel like you care about them. Actually care about them, value them, and then they will do whatever you want. I've seen that at the G League level. I've seen that at the college level and at the high school level. Like people want to be valued. The end.
So transitioning a little bit here, on you more specifically, what are you doing during this break that we having to keep yourself educated and keep yourself ready for when that season um, come back around? How are you filling your cup so you can fill your players next year?
So, so I'm currently not in contract with the Knicks right now. But I am a leader. I am a leader whether I am leading little kids, whether I'm leading a group of whatever or players, whatever. I'm a leader, and so I'm always reading different types of books or blogs or articles about just what I think is important in leadership. One thing that I've been reading about lately is emotional intelligence. Um, that supports the way that I lead others. And so now to be able to be more intentional about understanding where my players are emotionally, that will help me be a better leader. I found that I've been able to appeal to some of my players because they know that I genuinely care about them. And this might sound soft, this might sound corny, but I'm telling you, these are grown men who appreciate me as a coach because they know I appreciate them as a human being. Not the way they dunk, not the way they pass, not the way they dribble, but them as human beings. And so I've been studying a little bit more about emotional intelligence, how to relate to others, how people will view me, and stuff like that. But I've mainly been spending this time just working on personal development. The X's and O's, um, you can always learn. You could always learn the latest trends and analytics about that. But people who develop people, those are the ones who really win.
People who develop people. I like that. So to kind of go along with what you're saying, what is your approach to making a player feel like you care about them? How do you go about grabbing their attention and really, especially when you first meet a player?
Listen, like first of all, as a coach, okay, we'll talk about the G League. The G League is such a transient league. Like while everybody is happy to be there, nobody wants to be there. You know, the G League is the stop right before where you actually want to be. So everybody's trying to do something to get to where they want to be, the NBA. But I feel like you have to genuinely care about people. If you don't genuinely care about people or your players, when you try to have these conversations, they're gonna seem fraudulent, and the players are gonna just blow you off. You know, they'll be respectful, but they're gonna blow you off. You'll never get that connection. So first thing, genuinely care about the person that you're talking to, and then listen. Listen for what he's saying. Listen for what he's not saying. Listen for how he's saying it. Listen for what gets him excited when he's talking about it. You know, um, being a black woman coach of these men, they have sisters, they have aunties, they have mothers that they love and respect. So that already gives me an edge with them because they kind of look at me. There, there, there's a relationship off the bat that goes a little bit deeper than basketball. So already having that in, now it's like, let's just talk. What's important to you? I mean, I've talked to guys and I've given them um, like they've prayed with me. I've been fortunate to be able to be the chaplain when the chaplain was away, and so I asked one guy to pray during our chapel, and afterwards he was like, I've always wanted to pray um, aloud in front of people, but I've always been scared. So like, thank you. And it's like that is a huge deal, you know. Um, I had conversations about this guy and his girlfriend, and I'm like, she's going to eventually leave you because you're not treating her how you should be treating her. You say you love her, you say you this, you say you that, but how does she know that? This is what your actions are saying. This same guy just sent me a video of him and his girlfriend on a date like 3 days ago, and he took her to a really nice restaurant. Like the guy called me on Valentine's Day, like, so what kind of flowers do I get? Like, like we talk basketball, but basketball is just a means to them actually reaching some of their bigger goals. Just basketball is a goal, but they have dreams of taking care of their families, taking care of their friends, their kids, and yada yada. And so to be able to talk to them and get to know who they are outside of the Knicks organization, that's when they think that you care about them. That's when you prove that you care about
Something that you just mentioned that I found very powerful is the black woman coach, uh, and how that helps you in a way with a lot of players. And gentlemen, feel free to jump in on this because that's something that I've been curious about as well. How much do we do a disservice as coaches to players that look like us by not addressing those conversations that you just mentioned? Or
that is
go ahead,
that's
coach.
a huge that's a huge disservice because the first thing that we have to realize is that basketball is just one component of these people. Like that's just they have their pie and that might be 30% of who they are. But there's a whole other 70% that I could relate to with you. And so sometimes that other 70% is causing them anxiety, it's causing them depression, it's causing them a whole lot of different things. And we're not addressing that part. We're not addressing family issues. We're not addressing school. Maybe they didn't finish. We're not addressing whatever it is. And it's like we're being selfish if we only deal with this part because this is such a small part. And you can't expect these players, especially today, you can't expect these players to go out and completely just ball out of control if they have so much crap going on. And so if I'm in a position where I can understand them better, I am selfish and I'm not even living up to my God given abilities if I'm not addressing these hurting players. There were guys on the Knicks who literally were hurting for reasons that I will not disclose. And it's like, well, how do you expect them to come and do what you need them to do when they're hurting? There are players hurting everywhere, professional, college, high school, they're hurting everywhere. And so I just think that whether it's pain or not, like there's a way that we can relate. Leadership is about relationship. And if me being black and him being black and me being this and him being like if the more similarities that we have, I think that's what you use to be able to pull the most out of these players.
Yeah, I'll just to piggyback off of what you said. Um, I've been telling this story lately, but one of the schools that I worked at, I became close with one of the players, and he told me that he didn't feel like he knew one of the coaches like personally, and that kind of struck me because this kid that I developed a relationship with so strong enough that one day he told me he met his biological father and he's 22 years old. And I thought that was so striking. Like you trust me enough to tell me that information. Like, that's not something you tell everybody. And that's something he's been dealing with for 22 years or 21 years, not being able to know him. And, I'm not at the school anymore, but, I kind of texted my guys I was leaving and he sent me the message saying, you were the only person I could come to when things were rough. And I mean, I'd only been there for 2 years while the other coaches on staff had been there for four plus years. And that kind of struck me when that you feel like me being there for 2 years was able to make such an impact as opposed to a coach who's been there for 4+ years. And it's hard when kids tell you things like that. They don't know the other coaches. And so now, you have to really balance like being a shoulder to lean on for all 17 of your kids while these other coaches really don't. They're in the office, they do the scouts, they do the coaching, they do their drills, and then they go home. And I've been at places where that's happened, and guys really stress that to me. And as a coach, I can't really do much about that being the third assistant. You can't tell the coach you suck at building relationships. I mean, it's just not your place. But it definitely, to agree with what you were saying, it really hurts them. Guys play harder when you care. Like, guys get more. And I'm not a college basketball player. I never played college. And I didn't even play in high school. But I put in enough work for the guys to respect me. And they're like, man, you actually know what you're talking about. And not to be too long-winded, but it just really struck me when you said that guys will do more for you when they care. And even girls too. Like, I've seen both sides of it where girls just quit because they feel like coach didn't care at all. I mean, I've seen disasters happen, and it's unfortunate, but I've seen it happen.
To, to
That's a good example.
question for you, Coach Willis, if you can answer this. Jonathan just brought up, he doesn't feel like there's anything he can do as a third assistant. What are some advice that you would give him on how to maybe bring that to the head coach, or how to mend on both sides the bridge, how to mend that relationship? What are some advice that you can, from a leadership perspective, that you can give to that?
Right. I think as a third assistant, I think that there's a lot that you can do. Um, that was essentially what I was with the Knicks. And so as I'm building these relationships with the players, the head coach, he has so much stuff on his plate. So it's like, but we still need to know what's going on with our players. So I took it upon myself. He didn't ask me to. I took it upon myself to kind of keep the pulse, keep the temperature of what's going on with the team. And then when something would happen in practice, or before something would happen in practice, it's like, hey, coach, just a heads up. Like, this is what's going on with so and so. So blah 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 blah. You know, and so you don't have to run everything by the coach, but you can let the coach know, like, hey, maybe you want to take it a little bit easier on so and so today because this is what's going on. So that's what's worked for me. Um, and then just in other areas as the third assistant, they're not going to pay you or even have you around to do nothing. So you're valuable. You're valued. Like, so whatever it is that you need to do, or that is under your responsibilities, do that and go hard. And then also see ways that you can um, fix the process in other ways. You know, because one thing as an assistant coach, you're supposed to give the coach suggestions, whether he takes them or not. Like, you're supposed to give him suggestions, give him other points of view so that he can see how he can um, win. You know, and so I would just say there's so much that you could do being the third assistant. I would definitely keep building relationships with players, and because somebody needs to hear them, somebody needs to know what's going on with these players. You know, and in a game, coach can pull the player out. He can be pissed off. Go get so and so. Player comes out, and then you can be the one that goes and say, "Hey, this is what coach sees. Keep your head up. We worked on this. Refer to something that you've done in the past with him, and this will take care of blah blah blah, and you'll be good to go." You know, um, as the third assistant, you can do that. You don't have to just sit there and jot down stats. You know, so I just think there's a lot that you can do.
What are some ways that you add value to relationships with your peers?
How do I add value to relationships with my peers? So other coaches. You're saying other coaches.
Other coaches.
I think that just conversing is good. Like, I know when we would go play different teams, I would try to have lunch with different coaches that I knew on the staff. And obviously, we're not trading I'm not sharing any trade secrets. But at the same time, everybody in the NBA runs the same stuff. But just to talk about, like, okay, so how do you develop your players? What drills do you do with this? How is it like coaches share a lot, you know? And so just being in constant communication with each other, picking each other's brains, um, I think that's good. I know that I was talking to, who was it, Minnesota and Orlando. I was sitting down with both of them at separate times, and I learned a whole lot just about how to do certain drills that's going to target something that we were struggling with, you know. Um, so I think not being stingy with your knowledge, and being open to hearing what other people have gone through and how they've overcome it. I think that's really really good. I mean, people, they write articles, they do coaches clinics, and those are powerful. You know, those are powerful tools. But this is kind of how I
We got a timid crowd today.
do it.
Not to be too off topic, but I'm an East Coast guy, and I know you're a West Coast person. How do you like being on the East Coast more than the West Coast? I'm in Philadelphia, by the way, so not too far from where you're
Okay.
at.
Um, the East Coast, I love everything about the East Coast except for the weather. The weather sucks tremendously. Like, even if it's a nice day outside, like, it could start raining just like that. You know, so that part sucks tremendously. I can't stress that enough. But I like the atmosphere. I like the people. I like the drive. Like in Cali, like, we're very laid back. You know, beautiful weather. There's always tomorrow to get stuff. Like, it's just very, very chill. But on the East Coast, like, people are like, let's go. And that, even though on the outside, I have a chill personality. On the inside, like I'm trying to push things. So I like the East Coast.
Well, if weather is your complaint, don't come to Minnesota in the winter.
Oh man.
Just wanted to put that out there real quick.
Canada, stop this.
You know, because I always say this: Minnesota is the only place I'll be 75 at 1 o'clock and minus 20 by 7 o'clock.
That's crazy. That is crazy.
I got another question. Obviously, the NBA world is predominantly male based. How did you find kind of navigating your path as a woman, being the minority on the men's side? How was it navigating your path being an assistant coach in the G League, having to coach all these guys?
It wasn't bad at all. The like I said, the respect was almost instantaneous. Almost instantaneous. And so, I mean, I was very fortunate. You know, some people check boxes to bring in a woman, but even when they're checking boxes, they're not going to bring in a bum. Like even if they're checking boxes, they still are going to find a woman who's done a whole lot, uh, has great things to add to the organization to bring in. And so coming in, like they knew that I had a lot to give and so it wasn't bad at all. I think if I were to coach in the W, I probably would have a harder time in the W when it comes to respect. For some reason, um, or when it comes to being impressed, they're gonna respect me. You have to respect me. You don't have to. When I deal with men, they get super geeked out. Boys and men, they get super geeked out about the things that I've done. When I deal with women, I can tell them the very same thing, show them the very same thing, and they're like, "Oh yeah, okay, cool. I probably could beat you." What? Like that's just their demeanor. It's like we're in competition with one another. So yeah, on the men's side, it was cake.
Coach, if the NBA path had not worked out, would you have considered coaching long term overseas?
At this point, like I've always wanted to go back overseas and coach. Maybe up until a year, 2 years ago, I was like, okay, I might want to come closer to home, blah blah blah. But I loved overseas. Like Australia was a place that I wanted to coach. Um, Turkey, I loved it in Turkey. I loved it in Greece. Like Italy would have been nice. Um, I would have loved to go back overseas and
When
live there and coach.
while you're still employed, do you still like maintain your relationship with your agent like all the time, so to speak? Like are they still shopping you, so to speak?
Um, so yes, you maintain your agent. Like you don't want to see your agent, or talk to your agent only when you need a job. Um, but again, that's how it is for different people. For me, I was the player that you needed to be in contact with regularly, even though I didn't require that. And are they shopping you? Um, I'd imagine so. I'd imagine so. Maybe not in November, but closer to February, March. I'm sure they started to shop because for me, when I secured a job to go overseas in I think June, that was great. It's like sweet, my agent's been working, like I'm good to go because I don't typically go overseas until October. So so yeah, you want your agent to be able to shop you sooner, but at the same time, you have to give them something, to be some good stats to be able to do so.
All right, Coach, we have 2 minutes left to 4:30. I want to be respectful of the 1 hour that you and I talked about. Anything else? Any nugget that you want to leave us with?
Yeah, I just would want to drill home that As a coach, you are coaching people. You're not coaching basketball players. You are coaching people who play basketball. I think when you just keep that at the front of your mind, um, build the relationship. Coaching is all about relationships. Build the relationship, and I promise you, the players will give you more than what you could imagine.
All right, gentlemen, Coach Lisa, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for stopping in. Beyond the X's and O's, that's what we do. No, X's and O's, like you said, Coach, we can talk about that whenever. There's more to the game than that, and the 70% to use the numbers that you give out is what I'm mostly interested in and passionate about. So thank you for your time. I greatly appreciate it. We'll definitely stay in touch. And if we can help, let us know. Anybody that want Coach Lisa's number, Coach, you can feel free to give out your information if you want people to stay in touch with you, or I can give them out if that's okay with you as well.
You got it. You can give it out. And you can stay in touch on Instagram, Lisa Willis 40. And yeah, I'm pretty responsive.
I have one quick question before. Have you beaten any of the guys in one-on-one? Have they ever challenged you to play one-on-one?
I don't play with them, but they challenge me like 3 times a day.
They got to get their game up before they can talk to her. She's like, I don't
Right. Exactly.
All right, guys. Thanks again. Coach Lisa, just as a quick reminder, this is recorded. So if you want me to send that out to you, we'll definitely do that, okay?
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, gentlemen. Have a great rest of the day, Coach Lisa.
Thank you for having me.